After about 8.5 years of grinding Overwatch and playing competitive FPS games, I've learned that knowing what to improve isn't actually the same thing as improving. Let me know if this sounds familiar. You watch a bunch of Overwatch coaching videos, review all of your VODs, or at least some of your games, and know what mistakes you're making, spot them in real time, but still find yourself making the same bad decisions time and time again. And all this results in you being in the same rank. It's really frustrating. It feels like you're putting in the work and getting nothing back. So in this, I want to break down why exactly that cycle repeats itself, how your own mind can quietly sabotage your progress, and what it actually takes to break through it and improve your game. So let's first kind of look into what actually is holding us back. Why does it feel like we're digging a bottomless hole that keeps refilling itself, right? Why are we doing the same things over and over again? How is it that we're VOD reviewing, getting coaching sessions, checking out a bunch of tip videos and resources and learning all these things about the game, but you're not getting better? Like, what is it that's keeping us hard stuck? Why is it that it's not that we don't care or don't want to improve? We want to improve, but why can't we? Is it your genetics? I don't really think so. So first, I want to look at how does our mind learn things, right? This is really important, the concept to learn. So how does our mind learn? We can break this down into 3 steps here. The first being, we need to expose ourselves to the information at hand. So this just looks like basically noticing when you die, right? What happened when you died? What was the information? Like, did you die because you were overextended? Okay, now you know you have an overextension problem, right? Maybe you're not doing enough and you VOD review and you find, hey, I'm a DPS player, I should probably be taking an angle at some point, and you notice, hey, I'm not taking any angles. Like, how and when do I do that, right? You basically give yourself the data, right? We can recategorize this as data. What information is letting me know that something needs to change? The second thing, once you're exposed to it, you need a better way to internalize or understand it. So we are going to contemplate. So we need to question it, we need to examine it, we need to kind of think about it, right? We need to theory craft. So this is a lot of what goes on when you're looking at videos or when you're getting coaching, whenever you're asking questions, these kind of go hand in hand, right? So exposure and contemplation, they go together because you obviously need to know what you're like contemplating, right? So one is like figure out what you need to contemplate, 2, kind of like understand it intellectually, right? So go through the reasoning for the thing. Once you kind of like understand it, now we need to like embody it, right? So now it becomes subconscious. We need to absorb it, right? So we need to take our data, we need to figure out how to understand it, and then once we understand it intellectually, we need to figure out how to make it automatic. Now, in order to get from exposure to contemplation, how are we able to take our data and turn it into understanding? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to get the data. How do we get the data? If you haven't seen my last video already on awareness, I highly recommend you check that out because we go into detail in like exactly how we can notice the things that we make mistakes on and the things that we do well. And this is like kind of the preliminary step. If you don't know what's going on, you can't really figure out what to fix, right? So we need awareness. So once you kind of have all of the details of the situation, and you can only cultivate this through being aware or through going through VOD, right? If you go through a VOD review, you can kind of circumvent it, but we're gonna need this for a later step anyway, so you may as well always be practicing it, and you're also giving yourself more data the more aware you are all the time. So once you have the data, you need to like think about it, right? Say in a play I made, I am standing on the payload and there's a high ground up here, okay? And there's like a little tunnel, the payload goes under it, yada, yada, yada. And my teammate is yelling at me to get on high ground. How do I understand whether or not I'm supposed to be on payload in this moment? Well, one, if I'm aware of my surroundings, if I'm aware of everything that's going on, if I have the game knowledge necessary, right? If I know that, hey, like there is a teammate, maybe like a support or something. So the first thing I want to ask myself is like, hey, there's a support player behind me. I have my teammate, let's say he's a tank. Oh my God. Let's say he's a tank, right? And he's on high ground and he's begging me to go on high ground. I have to discern, is the correct decision to go on high ground or is it to stay on the cart, right? And this is where we need to use our contemplation. This is what our mind allows us to do. We can make the discernment for ourselves using the information if it was the correct play. If I leave the cart and I go on high ground, is my support going to die? Is there going to be benefits, to going up here, right? Am I going to be able to do more damage and help our tank, right? So this is just like a very generic example, but this is kind of the process you want to go through. Does my support have enough mobility to stay in the cart and not die? Is it a Zen on the cart or is it a Kiriko? Use whatever information's available to make your judgment. You might be objectively wrong, but over time, if you keep doing this over and over again, you'll come to the truth. You'll figure out what is right? Because say you went to the high ground because you knew your tank was alone and you thought your healer would be fine on the payload, right? And logically in your brain, it made sense. Hey, my healer is on the payload. I need to do pressure up top. But you didn't know due to lack of experience that, say, this was a Zenyatta and the Zenyatta got jumped. You didn't know that it probably wasn't his job to go on the payload. But once you kind of make this decision and notice your Zenyatta die as a result of your action because you forced him to go on the payload, maybe that was the wrong play. So you contemplated it and now you have a better understanding, right? So you need trial and error. You need to just try things out, see what happens, and reflect on it and iterate, okay? So that's how you kind of learn to understand the game better. Obviously, you can watch videos and it'll kind of accelerate that process, right? So you can learn from other people, learn from how, better players think, learn how the game works, learn more details about how the game works and then interactions and different map knowledge and all of the above. All of this improves your understanding. To improve your understanding about your own play, you need awareness. You need either a coach to tell you, or you need to look at it yourself in a VOD, or you need to notice it as it happened and do the process that I explained here. Once we have our understanding, we now need to figure out how to make it subconscious. We need to figure out how to absorb it. How do we get from understanding something to making the behavior automatic? Because even though you may understand something intellectually, it does not mean that, again, I've said this before, it does not mean that your behavior reflects that. I can know every little tidbit about Overwatch, right? Think about analysts. Think about Overwatch casters. Think about casters from any game, really. They're not the best players in the game. A lot of times they're very average in skill, in rank. But they can kind of break down every single tidbit of the game. They can say they understand the theory of the game very well, but they don't necessarily know how to do it themselves. Now, once we understand our mistake, deficiency, thing to improve, anything along the lines, once we understand it, in order to convert it to automatic subconscious behavior where we embody it in our actions, we need to actually practice the thing. Now, the important thing about practicing it is that when you practice, if your attention is not on the thing you are trying to work on, the quality of the practice will significantly decrease, and your ability to remember what you worked on and what you changed, the rewiring of your neurons will not happen as efficiently. You need to stay focused on the thing you are practicing. I cannot emphasize this enough. I'm going to show you how to do it. So, my approach to improvement, the first thing you need is to understand what needs to be improved. And you can do this through coaching, through VOD reviews, through being aware of what's going on around you and just kind of reflecting and iterating as I showed you. Think about the data and then form your conclusions till you have an understanding, right? So once you have an understanding of the situation, you can be like, okay, I probably did this wrong. I need to improve this thing. Now, once you've identified the thing you need to improve, you need to then figure out, what do I need to change in my gameplay to differ from how I normally play. Because if you're plat and you want to be diamond and you don't change anything about how you play, if you watch a tip video and you internalize all the tips and then you don't like try to use any of the tips in the game, and that requires you to change how you play, then like you're just going to stay plat. If you're not actually changing anything about how you're playing the game, your rank's not going to change either. So you need to understand what to change from how you normally play. Now, once you know what you need to do, so let's use an example. Let's say whenever you're dueling a tracer, you rush your shots because she's very in your face. She moves very fast. She's a small target and you're kind of like really tense. And you want to learn to not be tense when you get in a duel with a tracer. So I notice that I'm rushing shots when I play against a tracer. I now understand the data, right? I know what is wrong. I know that I'm rushing shots. Second, what do I change from how I normally play? Okay, so when I'm rushing shots, I've kind of found through my awareness that it's because I'm tensing my arm really badly whenever I get in a duel. And when I tense my arm, it makes my aim shaky and I don't aim how I normally do, right? So what do I need to do? Maybe I need to like breathe. Maybe I need to drop my shoulders, release tension in my hand. So these are the things that I want to do like in my play, right? Which is great. You know what you need to do. There's one key step. In order to remember to do this thing when the situation comes up, you need a trigger. You need something to remind you to do it. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to say, hey, okay, I'm going to go into these games and I'm going to stop rushing my shots. And then you get into a duel and you're like all caught up in what's going on around the game. And you just end up like, you get in a duel with a tracer and then you just forget to do all these things when that duel comes up. That's because you didn't have some sort of in-game reminder. If you say, okay, I'm going to play 15 games and I'm going to practice not rushing my shots when I'm dueling a tracer, that might only happen 5 of the games, right? So what we need to do is establish like some sort of trigger to remind ourselves when to do the thing. So in this case, the trigger might be like the tracer getting really close to you or blinking towards you, right? So like tracer blinking. So now you're associating a tracer blinking with breathing, dropping your shoulders, and releasing tension. Now, whenever you go into a game, you're going to get in the habit of, hey, I see a tracer, breathe, drop my shoulders, relax tension. Now I don't have the issue of like being really tense when a tracer's, trying to duel me. Once you have the trigger to remind yourself to do it, whenever you go into a game, you're going to do the thing. Or you're going to attempt to do the thing. This is a very important note. Just because you know when to do it and know what to do when to do it, it does not necessarily mean you're going to correctly execute it when you do it. This is where the repetition comes in. Now you need to do the thing over and over again until it's easy. You do not want to care about the results. Do not focus on whether it works or whether it doesn't. Because one, you're not gonna like do it right when you're trying to learn it, at least over and over again. You don't know it because you haven't done it yet. So don't expect yourself to be perfect. In order to get to the point where you're really good at it, you have to have some sloppy mistakes. You need to be able to fuck up, like own that, accept that, and try again. The more you do it, the more you'll get better at it. So we want to like basically, as long as you put your attention on doing the thing and you attempted to do the thing and you listened to the trigger, you did whatever you planned to do, that's great. Now just do that 15, 20, 30 more times. It might take less depending on how easy the task is, right? Or the goal. You don't want to be worried about whether you do it or whether you don't do it. You want to be worried about whether you try to do it. Because all that really matters is that you are putting your attention on the thing that you want to focus on. Because that's all that you can really do. You don't have the power to like make things like happen, right? What you do have the power to do is to direct your actions to make the thing more probable to happen. It's like I can pick up this pencil and I can say, yeah, I can 100% guarantee that I can like walk it across my apartment. But there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that I don't like trip and fall, right? Or I don't know, maybe like there was a water leak that I didn't know about and I stepped on it and I slipped, right? And I dropped the pencil. Like now all of a sudden it's not a 100% guarantee. But I can put every ounce of my awareness and my attention into like looking out for that puddle of water and not slipping. It significantly reduces the likelihood, but there's no like guarantee that it happens. You want to focus on, am I putting attention on this thing? Keep trying it over and over again. If you notice that you forget to put attention on it, just remind yourself. Don't beat yourself up for forgetting. Just remind yourself, hey, I forgot to put my attention on this. Let me go again this time and do it right. But that's all I got for you guys today. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.